Welcome to Slaughterhouse Stories. I hope you enjoy the story I have for you tonight. Avalina's Doll. Just last week, my mom's favorite Vietnam doll from the 70s broke by falling off her shelf with a loud commotion. It was made out of a type of glass that a vase would be made out of. She seemed somewhat negatively affected by it. I told her that I would see what I could do to get it replaced. She told me that the only reason why it meant so much to her is because she'd had it ever since she was 7. She's never owned something so long. After I heard about the accident, she told me that a garage sale was just up the street from her place. So I took a stroll there and checked out what they had. The garage sale was run by an old man and his wife. Most of what they were selling were movies from the 60s or children's books. Must be grandparents, I'd assume. Nothing much came to interest, except for this doll at the sale. It looked oddly like my mom's Vietnam doll. It was a bit bizarre. It had the long dark hair, the beautiful dark red dress, the little black slips, and even the pale white on its skin. But something was a bit strange about the doll. The eyes were pitch black instead of a baby blue. I thought nothing of it and approached the old man and asked him how much the doll was. He just laughed a little and said, "I remember that doll. It's a China doll. It used to belong to my granddaughter. Too bad she passed." I asked him what he meant and he told me. My granddaughter was 16 when she died. She committed suicide. God only knows why she did it. I thought a little deep into it, then asked how much the doll was again, realizing I never even got an answer to how much it cost in the first place. He told me he wasn't going to charge me for it. He just wanted it out of his sight. I replied with a soft, "Thank you." I kept thinking about how oddly strange and suspicious that old man was. When I arrived home, I showed my mom the doll. "It's perfect," she replied, with a huge grin on her face. Ever since then, she has not said anything negative about the doll. All she said was it oddly looked exactly like hers, and I noticed how she's been attached to it. Whenever I go over to her house, I see her in her rocking chair, rocking back and forth, staring into the doll's darkened eyes. It's a little creepy, so after that I took a break from going over to her house, because I had this nightmare the other day after seeing how attached she's been to the doll. The nightmare started out where I was in a well-lit room. I knew I was dreaming, but in the dream I was trying to uncover something. Across from where I was standing, there was a little girl. She looked quite similar to the doll itself. I asked her what she wanted. She told me she was there to warn me about the horrors that the doll holds in place. I asked her what she meant. She told me that the doll was possessed by an evil spirit. It explains a little to why my mom has been acting so bizarre and unusual lately. In my dream, I asked if I could destroy the doll. She said no, as it would release the evil spirit, making it easier to possess my mother's body. The little girl told me that I should try to get rid of the doll somehow, other than trying to destroy it. Unfortunately, I didn't know much at that time. It was only a nightmare. God only knows if what the girl in my dream spoke of was even a real thing. The day after I'd had that nightmare, bizarre things began to happen. My mother was acting a bit strange. She no longer answered my phone calls, nor even called me. Something was wrong, and I had to get to the bottom of it. I went over to my mom's house, and when I approached the door, it was already open. What horrors could be in there? I dashed inside and into my mom's room. She was in a corner, shivering. She turned around and grinned. Something was off about her. Her eyes were darkened. I stumbled back in terror.
"What's wrong? You don't like how I look?"
she said in a demonic voice. I then noticed the brutal cuts up and down her arms. What the fuck is going on? I wondered. I need to see a priest before this goes too far. The next time, I've just spoken to a priest about what's been going on with my mother. The only problem was I had to wait 5 days for him to get here. He recently arrived at the house. I opened the door for him to come into the house, and I walked up the stairs with the man, explaining what's been going on with her and the doll. He simply replied, "Was it Avalina's doll?" I didn't know what he spoke of, so I questioned him about the name, Avalina. He told me that she was about 10 years old, and she lived with her grandparents. One day she was roaming the attic, looking for a light bulb, and instead, she found the China doll. The same doll my mom now owned. Avalina decided to call the doll Emily. A little after she found the doll, Avalina noticed something wrong about the doll. She warned her grandparents about the horrors the doll held. It showed her things she didn't want to see. As punishment, they locked her in the cellar of their house until she quit her nonsense about the doll. But still, she spoke of the China doll. Then it came one day that they bound her to a chair in the cellar and lit her on fire. They took her ashes and sprinkled them into the grass in their yard. I knew there was something off about that old couple. I didn't expect that. After our discussion, we approached my mother's room. We walked inside, and my mom was curled up into a ball on her bed. This black stuff was oozing out of a deep cut in her back. He told me to wait outside the room, and I did so. The whole time I was waiting, I heard chanting and screaming. I was waiting patiently, worried, but trying not to bother the priest. After 30 minutes, he brought me into the room and explained that the entity that possessed my mother was the same one that manipulated Avalina. The priest told me that in order to fix everything back to the way it was, the China doll had to be buried. I took the doll to an abandoned ranch not that far from where my mom's house was. I buried the doll, and ever since everything's been fine. For about a week, my mom was talking about the China doll, Emily. The bizarre thing is that a day after the entity left my mom, the house with that old couple that I got the doll from burned down while they were sound asleep in their bed. Some have even said that they saw a little girl in the area with dark hair and a red dress. She looked a lot like that doll. To this day, I wonder if that soul was laid to rest, or if we just opened a doorway to another dimension, a doorway that can't be closed. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed tonight's story, please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time,
Stay spooky.